Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rome Business Radio. I'm Roger Manus, coming to you from our studios at the Rome News Tribune in downtown Rome, Georgia, where we are going to talk local business here about the Rome, Georgia, and Northwest Georgia business community. I am joined by three Best of Rome winners, as recently recognized by the Rome News Tribune. We'll just go around the room here quickly and let everybody introduce themselves. To my left is Saunders Jones, the Chief Lending Officer, Vice President of Coosa Valley Credit Union. Welcome, Saunders.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. I'm also joined by Todd Bussey, the owner of Bussey's Florist. Hello, Todd. How are you?
Great, Roger. Thanks for having me here.
Welcome. And Barry Henderson is the owner of Henderson and Sons Funeral Home. How are you doing today, Barry?
I'm great, Roger. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for all being here. I know a couple of you know each other, Todd and Barry, because Todd, you are in the florist business, and Barry, you are in the funeral home business. So obviously y'all have conducted business in the past. And we got the Coosa Valley Credit Union here, but no pre-existing relationship. So part of what we're doing here is introducing people to each other. The mission of Rome Business Radio is to create connections, let people tell their story, share their stories, let our listeners know about their business, but also just create relationships in the room. So where the conversation goes, that's where the conversation goes. Let's get to know each other. So Saunders, tell us a little bit about what you do at the Coosa Valley Credit Union.
Well, I do, I guess ultimately I'm responsible for every loan that we do at Coosa Valley.
So you're important.
Well, I don't know about that. I just get the phone calls that we get for the ones that don't go quite as well. No, I have the pleasure of being able to manage all the lines of business on the lending side, from everything from credit cards to personal loans to auto loans to mortgages, and of course my specialty is business lending.
All right. I may ask you a stupid question, but there are no stupid questions, right? My understanding, basic difference between banks and credit unions are customer owned is that correct?
Yes.
So how does that work? Just give me the credit union 101.
Yes, absolutely. So, in a traditional bank, there are shares, ownerships of the corporation, and more than one person can own more than one share. So I could own one share of a bank. I could own 1,000 shares of a bank, right? And it depends on how much money I want to spend to buy those shares. And the difference is in a credit union, one share per person. So there's not a concentration of ownership in the credit union. Everybody has the same say. And from a business model standpoint, a bank is obviously for profit for those shareholders. The purpose is to generate profit for the shareholders. In a credit union, it's a nonprofit enterprise. So it's a little bit different business model, but from the outside looking in, we do all the same things that you can expect from a bank, a traditional bank. We just do it in a little bit different way, and oftentimes with not necessarily the exact same purpose of profit generation.
Understood. I think I have been a little bit of an entrepreneur in my life, so I've run some nonprofits myself, but
yes.
Not on purpose.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's move over to Todd here at Bussey's Florist, family-owned business, second generation. Just tell me a little bit about the background of your operation there.
Sure. Bussey's Florist and Gifts started in 1976 when my parents opened our store, and I was probably middle school age at that time. And found myself working in the business, and went off to college, never to come back and work in the retail floral business again, and found out I missed the business. And at the University of Georgia, found myself working for an operation there.
Go Dogs.
Learned a lot. Go Dogs. Came back, bought the family business, and in 2010, we opened our second store here in Rome, Georgia on Broad Street. We were in a partnership with Kevin Dillman, Riverside Gourmet, Holly Lynch with the Season Events, and it was a great experience. We were there for 9 years and just recently moved to Central Plaza on 2nd Avenue. So we're happy to be there, and that's been a great experience so far.
So your business is growing, and I know, Barry, yours is as well. Just tell us a little bit about Henderson and Sons. I know it's a family situation for you as well, from your dad to you. Just tell us a little bit about the history of your family's business.
Well, I'm really a baseball player that God called to be in the funeral business. But,
what position?
I was a catcher.
Okay.
I was born and raised here in Rome, played all my life behind the levee. And, of course, I started working at the funeral home when I was 16. But I really just thought I was following Dad's footsteps. had a plan to go on and play some baseball and did that. Went and played at Jacksonville State. Married before my senior year at Jacksonville State. And, when I came back, my wife, we started work and my wife wanted, to get involved with the church. And that's when I had a spiritual conversion. And I really felt like God was calling me to preach, if you can believe that. But, and a lot of people that'll hear this from Rome will think, oh my goodness, Barry being a preacher. But, he wasn't calling me to preach. He was calling me to the funeral business and to the ministry that we have. And, that's the way Dad was called. Dad in 1961, following a sales career, with Singer Sewing Machine. Also a career singing professionally on the old Louisiana Hayride.
Oh, I remember. I'm a big Elvis Presley fan. That's where Elvis got a little bit of his early jump start.
Right. But, Dad, just from a calling, bought a little funeral home down in the South Lindale area. And, just because that's what he knew God had called him to do. And, here we are today.
So for you thought family footsteps, but it became real and personal and on a spiritual connection with you.
Absolutely.
So the business called you home and Rome called you home. And Saunders, you're from Cedartown. Is that correct?
No, I'm from Cartersville.
I'm sorry, Cartersville. Okay. And you still live in Cartersville?
No, I grew up in Cartersville. My dad was a doctor in Cartersville, practiced medicine in Cartersville, for years. He's a bone doctor and, grew up in Cartersville. We got married to my high school sweetheart. We both went to the University of Georgia as well. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Sick 'em.
Came back home, and she was a teacher, and I was in the banking business. And then about 3 years ago, when I came, and took on the role at Coosa Valley, that's when we moved from Cartersville to Taylorsville. So which is a little, it's one stop between Cartersville and Rome, right there, with I think one stop sign, and that's about it in Taylorsville. But
so their backgrounds are interesting in that it was sort of a family business that they connected with, but it sounds like you came from a medical family and you end up in money.
That's right. One thing I knew with certainty was I was not going to be in the medical field, because Dad would come home and have these slideshows of fingers and hands that he put together, and that is the last thing I wanted to do, was deal with anything with blood. So actually I wanted to be an attorney and studied that pre-law at Georgia, and then realized I didn't want to be an attorney. It was about my junior year, and in college realized, okay, I'm stuck. So actually went back home between my junior and senior year, talked with Sam Smith, who was his former mayor, Cartersville, longtime pillar of community in Cartersville, and he was the bank president of a small community bank at the time. And I talked with him, and he said, I'd love to have you come and join me and work for the bank. So I trained under him and kind of cut my teeth doing that.
Well, I read on your bio on your website, which, by the way, what is your website there at Coosa Valley Credit Union?
Coosa Valley is mycvcu.org.
Okay.
As in mycoosavalleycreditunion.org. So
gotcha. But I read on your bio that you actually take great pride in working with small business owners and real estate investors. Just talk about that connection you have with your customers. Yeah.
So, obviously we do a lot of car loans, a lot of personal loans, and that's the heart and soul of what we do as a credit union. Me personally, I came up through the community bank ranks, and I have a passion for helping small business owners and real estate investors, just because, number one, I'm too chicken to do it on my own, right? But I think that the small business owner and the real estate investor are really the backbone of America, right? That's where the most of the jobs are in the small business world. That's where all the really the great entrepreneurial spirit is found on that side. And I love being able to work with those people on a daily basis and helping them achieve their goals and being able to help finance some of their projects as well.
Todd, as a small business owner in this area, how important is the relationship to the community? Your family name forever in this town now with the floral company, and just return business and things like that. How important has that been to your success?
Oh, I think the relationship is everything. Being in business for 40 plus years, we're dealing with multiple generations. And the unique thing about our business is we sell flowers, but it's really that emotional connection that the flowers symbolize that is what the person is purchasing. And so we see people at happy times. We see them at birthdays. We see them at weddings. We see them at celebrations, and also at the end of life when we work with Barry. And so we touch all those points in their lives. And so having that connection with the community is what it's all about. And I think we're really blessed to live in a community that is so civic-minded and supportive of the business community here in Rome.
Barry, if you would touch on that as well, because obviously the end of life is coming for all of us. Obviously a sad time. So, how is important is it for you to maintain long-standing family relationships, just in people's worst possible time of needing comfort and grief counseling and things like that?
It's everything. The long-standing idea of the funeral profession is to treat a family with honesty, with dignity, and with integrity during those moments where they're the most vulnerable, during the worst time of their life. And as Todd said, now the funeral process has changed so much from celebrations. People actually see the spiritual gain that the individual has when they've been suffering, and all of a sudden they cross over and, you celebrate their life, a life that is well remembered. And, I think it's, one of the most important things that happens in your life. I mean, you think about it, you think about a birth, you think about marriages, you think about then celebrating a life at death and the memories that you have. And, but being here all my life and living here all my life and, being transparent before the community and serving in the coroner's office. And that again was an extension of my ministry, because, when I took the coroner's office, I was actually appointed to, serve in an interim basis when our former coroner had done some things that, were unethical, were immoral, and were totally, outside the realm of his responsibilities. And I was appointed to serve during that term until the trial and the legal process went on. And then after that, then I was appointed to finish out his term. But, I wanted to carry my ministry to those families because, at that scenario as the coroner, you're meeting with that family in the most devastating situation. The coroner's cases, the accidents, the suicides, the untimely and undetermined deaths. And, just to be there and, to let them know that, someone was going to take care of the needs that, were there. And, it's a calling. That's all I can explain it by.
How important is it, and what message would you convey to people about pre-planning arrangements?
Oh, it's very important. Dear friend of mine, never forget, played ball against him in high school, but we maintained a friendship throughout. He's a professor here in town now, or was, and I'll never forget what he told me. He happened to be out of town when his mother passed away. He was out with his son. His son played college golf, and they were on a trip, and his mother passed away. But his mother, about 3 years prior, had come in and had made her arrangements, pre-funded, took care of everything. So really the only time that he and I had to meet was at the service. And we did that, arranged it. And then the first time that he actually saw his mother was at the church before the service. I'll never forget him going down and spending some time with his mother. And then he came back out and he put his arm around me and he said, "Barry, that's the greatest gift my mother could have given to me, to have taken care of things ahead of time. That way I know that she received what she wanted. And, I can be assured of that." So it is very important.
Well, it's interesting. You don't want to think about it, but everybody should pre-plan that event because it is a natural part of life.
It is. It's bad to have to make any decision under duress.
Sure.
Whether it be dealing with a bank or whether it be anything dealing under duress, you want to have a clear mind, clear thoughts, not under the pressure of any grief, and be able to think things through to make a good decision.
Well, it's funny you motioned at Saunders over here, so that's just a part of life as well, trying to pre-plan budgets and mortgages and loans and things like that. What advice do you give to people that are coming in to needing to borrow money to start a business, or what's the information you're looking for from them, and what would you share with them out of the gate if they come in and say, "Hey, I want to borrow money to do X, Y, or Z"?
Right. It's a great question. I would say we have the benefit of dealing with a lot of people. We have, I think over 44,000 members of Coosa Valley, Credit Union, and we deal with a lot of people, a lot of different areas of life. And I would say the common thing is, regardless of your situation, your financial situation, the most important thing is building a basic budget, knowing how much money you have coming into your household and writing down the expenses that you have, and making sure that those two numbers meet, right? And then, Lord willing, you're able to save a little money, put a little money away in a savings account, a little bit at a time. That's a great strategy too. But, a lot of people, given circumstances, don't have that ability to save a ton of money. But I would say that when you do have the money, try to set it aside, put some in, for either a retirement account or an emergency savings account. Because one thing's for certain is that we all are going to face some sort of point in our life where we're going to need either to have that savings, and heaven forbid, if you don't have that savings, you can know that you can rely upon a credit union or bank to help you out and give you that money to make those ends meet. And
y'all have some several locations throughout the area, correct? Very convenient for customers.
Yes, we're kind of the best kept secret. We have we're about $350 million in assets, and that's how the lending institution, banking institution measures asset size. So we're one of the largest institutions outside of the large national banks here in the area, and we have locations all up and down Northwest Georgia. We have one in Ringgold, Georgia. We have obviously our 3 locations here in Rome. We're actually in the process of building, moving our new location over there off the bypass in Rome, near where they're building the spires out there. That's going to be our new main office there. We're excited about that. We have 2 locations in Cartersville. We have a location in Cedartown and Rockmart, and we're currently eyeing several locations up and down 75 between here in Cartersville and Ringgold.
So Northwest Georgia covered.
That's our home. That's our home.
Barry, did you want to jump in about a point you made a minute ago?
He made a point too. When you talk about pre-planning your funeral is just one of the small things in your planning portfolio, if you will, because, in pre-planning your funeral, that just goes through and begins the process, because when you are planning for that day that you're called home, you need to think about preserving your assets for your family. A long illness can deplete an estate, and you need to think about those things ahead of time. And so just planning your funeral, and we give advice to that. We don't just, sit with the family and plan their funeral. We try to look at the entire concept and direct them to professionals that will help them in taking care of the whole affair.
And just a couple of little informational items from you as well. Your locations are?
We have 3 locations conveniently around Rome. We have the original location called our South Chapel on Maple Road down toward the Lindale community. We have our North Chapel and Crematory, which is out in Armurchie on Highway 27. Up there, and that's where our crematory is located. And then we recently purchased last year the Oaknaw Chapel, which is across from Oaknaw Cemetery on the Alabama Highway. And then we have our cemetery on 27 South, Rome Memorial Park.
And you're the only funeral home in the area that owns its own cemetery.
That's
too,
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Todd, your locations again, you had one on Broad Street.
Yes, we have 2 locations. Right. We have the original store, which is in Cedartown, right in the heart of downtown, and our Rome location is in Central Plaza on 2nd Avenue.
Your presence here today has made me think of questions I never would have thought of before. Like, how do you handle your inventory in parts of the year where things don't grow?
Gosh, we deal in perishables, so that's always a challenge. And probably that's the greatest improvement that I've seen in our industry since we opened our store. I can remember going to the bus station and picking boxes up of flowers that, we were in crisis for some reason and needed back in the day. But now things are grown all over the world, not just domestically, but South America, Holland, and they're either brought to us by boat, by plane, by refrigerated truck. And so the supply is pretty plentiful. It's just amazing to visit our vendors in Miami. That's the port of entry, and seeing just the thousands of products there.
One of the things too I'd like to say about Todd, he is a very progressive florist. In my history at the funeral home, I've never had a florist to bring me a selection book of his offerings for funeral flowers. And Todd has that book available at all of our funeral homes. And, it's very progressive because, people like to select something that they can see.
Sure.
And, it's been, it's just now catching on, but, he's very progressive as a florist.
Oh, well, thank you, Barry. We're fortunate to be, affiliated with some pretty progressive florists throughout the country, and work with them on marketing materials and things of that nature to help our customers. And that's what it's all about. Probably our biggest location right now, or our fastest growing location, is our website. And that's something that we've invested heavily in and made some improvements this year.
Which is, what's the website
It
address?
is bussey'sflorist.com.
bussey'sflorist.com. Do you have any interesting stories about, say, somebody who might come in there that's a little bit clueless? They've done something wrong to a loved one, like a girlfriend or spouse, and they need to know what to get. do you offer counsel and advice?
I'm taking notes. Right? I'm taking notes.
It's fun to listen to some of the phone calls that I hear going on sometimes, but we have all those sorts of things that happen throughout the course of the day, and in those cases, primarily most of our customers are men, and most frequently though it's oh my God, I forgot, and how quick can you get something?
It's not doing something wrong. It's just I forgot the anniversary of the birthday or something.
So that's one of our hallmarks is being there and being able to take care of things quickly.
Let me tell you a unique story about that. When my dad passed away in 2008, Dad and I had talked, and my mother passed away in 1986. So, my dad remarried in 92, and, my dad had told me that, when he passed away, as soon as I can, order some roses for his wife, my stepmother.
Okay.
And the roses showed up to her house and from Dad. And, that was special.
That is a special little thing to do. Wow, that's a great story. See, that's a note that we should take.
That's right.
Exactly. And it's all, that's the beauty of what we get to do, is we get to touch people in those ways and, add meaning to those times.
Yeah. I always get confused about what flower means what. So I'm always asking questions about, I don't want to overstep something here, but
and that's something that you shouldn't worry about. Call us and we can advise you on that, or come by the store. But, back in the Victorian era, a lot of things had symbolic meaning behind it. Not so much anymore. If her favorite color is purple, send purple flowers, but we can help you and walk you through that process. But, it's interesting how things like that change, and that's part of what we try to stay abreast of too.
Sure.
In my profession, you have to be careful. When I send flowers to my wife, I have to make sure that the florist delivers them, so my wife doesn't think that I have picked them up somewhere around the shop.
We did have a delivery go into one of Barry's employees last week, and I made sure to tell our driver that this is a front door delivery.
Wow. I don't deal with any of that in my business. Saunders, you probably don't have stories like that, do you?
No.
Anything crazy from your world at all in the credit union business?
Well, maybe nothing that I can go into in a lot of detail. I just know that we have had disputes on husband-wife comes in disputing a charge on a bank account, and then the husband denies. Then the wife leaves to go to the restroom, and then he gives me this kind of under his breath comment like, "Don't worry, This was something that I did. I just don't want to tell my wife about.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh, I'm sorry. I've lost my train of thought now. I didn't mean to get anybody in any trouble.
That's right.
Well, let's get back to business here, because we are trying to spread the gospel of the business community of Rome and Northwest Georgia. Just to each of you individually, we'll start with you, Todd. What does it mean to you to be a part of this business community? How you're a part of it and how it supports you?
Being a part of a progressive community is important. And that's something that I think we all see in Rome and Floyd County. Not only are they looking to take care of what's here today, but we're looking towards the future and how we build for that. And I find that in this community, the community supports people who support it. We try to be an active part in the community. We partner with RACA to support their Firefly Fling, which is one of their major fundraisers throughout the year. We work with the Heart of the Community Foundation, and I think it's important to partner with organizations in the community. And one thing that's very rewarding about doing business in Rome is the way the community rallies around us because of that presence in the community. And I think that's something that you guys would agree with, that we see here.
Yeah, Barry?
Same thing. You know, I was born and raised here. I serve this community. So I buy cars in this community. I buy goods in this community. I support local charities and organizations in this community. I go to church in this community. So why wouldn't you stay in the community to do all of your needs? I mean, it's been great being raised here, raised in a town that, just had your back, and people really loved one another, and, all the teammates and their parents and the relationships that have been built. Your teammates are your brothers for life. So, I feel like I'm fully vested here, and I'm staying here, and don't plan to leave.
Coosa Valley Credit Union is spread throughout Northwest Georgia. What kind of feedback do you get from the community, Saunders, about y'all's place here in the business community?
Well, it's, we do have a lot of locations all over Northwest Georgia. That's true. But I will tell you, our roots are General Electric Credit Union. When we started as a General Electric Credit Union here in Rome in 1954, and we've grown obviously, since then. But our branch managers, our lenders, are the ones who, they're the lifeblood of our organization. They're the ones who have the personal relationships with each and every one of our members. They're the ones that get that phone call, the ones that deal with and handle all the needs, financial needs of our community. And, we have, board members here who, have served, decades, for the credit union. So, we do, obviously we have a large net to where we can handle and help a lot of people in a lot of different areas, but Rome is the backbone and the roots of our organization. And
one last time here, your website one more time for the listeners.
Yeah, our website is, mycvcu.org. So that's mycvcu.org.
Okay. Todd, final thoughts from you? Anything you'd like to say? And if you would give us your contact information again, your website.
Sure. You can find us at www.busseysflorist.com. And, sitting at this table, it just reminds me of how great it is to do business in this community. I think one of the reasons that the relationships, in this community are so important is because people like to do business with people that they know. And, this is just a great opportunity to spend some time with some great business leaders in the community.
Well, we thank you for being here. Barry, your website, contact information, and any final thoughts?
HendersonandSons.com. That's ANDSONS, HendersonandSons.com. And if anyone wanted to contact me, they can call at any of our locations, our cemetery number. Just leave a message, and we'll make sure to return the call.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate all of you being here today. This has been Rome Business Radio. We are amplifying the voice of business in Northwest Georgia. I've been your host, Roger Manus. We will talk to you next time.